Notification sound cuts through the silence at 7:14 in the morning, and for a second, just 1 second, I think it might be my brother texting to say he's running late. It isn't. It's a reminder from the grocery app about a pickup order I'd placed 3 days ago. 36 mini quiches, 2 cheese boards, a case of sparkling water, and enough charcuterie to feed a small neighborhood. I'd spent $400 on food for a party that hadn't happened yet, and somehow, standing in my kitchen in the pale early light, I already knew. I just didn't want to admit it. Let me back up, because none of this makes sense without the 6 years that came before it. I started saving when I was 24. I was working as a dental hygienist at a practice in Columbus, Ohio. Decent pay, good hours, the kind of job my parents called stable in the same tone they used for words like sensible and practical. I was living in a studio apartment with a Murphy bed and a bathroom so small I had to step into the hallway to put on my coat. I didn't mind. I was putting away $1,100 every single month into a high-yield savings account, and I had a spreadsheet, color-coded, obsessively updated every Sunday night, that showed me exactly what date I'd have enough for a down payment. I watched that date the way some people watch sunsets, like it was the most beautiful thing in the world. My brother, he's 3 years younger than me, was living at home during most of this. My parents had converted the basement into what my mom called his creative studio. He made music, not professionally, not even semi-professionally, but he had dreams. And in our house, his dreams had always been treated like something delicate and worth protecting. Mine were treated like logistics. That's not bitterness talking. That's just the pattern I grew up in, and it took me an embarrassingly long time to name it clearly. When I was 17, I got a partial scholarship to Ohio State. My parents were proud. Briefly. My brother came home that same week with a demo recording he'd made at a friend's house, and the kitchen table conversation shifted, and it stayed shifted. I learned to not need the spotlight. I told myself that was a virtue. I was wrong. It was just a coping mechanism dressed up as maturity. I'm 31 now, and I am the one who bought a house. It's a 3-bedroom ranch in Westerville. Pale yellow siding, a porch with enough room for 2 chairs and a small table, a backyard with an oak tree that drops acorns every fall like it's trying to repay some debt. When I walked through it the first time with my realtor, I stood in the kitchen for probably 4 full minutes without saying a word, and she was patient enough to let me. I closed in early March. The paperwork was 40 pages long. I signed my name so many times my hand cramped. When it was over, the title officer handed me a key on a plain metal ring, and I sat in the parking lot of the title company for 10 minutes before I could drive. I called my mom first. "That's great, honey," she said. And then, almost in the same breath, "Your brother has a show next weekend, did I tell you? At that bar on 5th. You should come." I said I'd try. I hung up and drove to my new house and ate a peanut butter sandwich on the floor of my empty living room, and I felt, somehow, both incredibly happy and incredibly alone at the same time. I planned the housewarming for a Saturday in late April. 6 weeks out. I sent actual paper invitations. I found these beautiful ones at a local stationery shop, cream cardstock with a little illustrated house on the front, and I also sent digital ones to Revite because I know my family. I wanted no excuse. No, I didn't get it, or I forgot to check my email. I invited my parents, my brother, my aunt on my mom's side, my 2 cousins, a few family friends who'd known me since I was in middle school. I also invited my coworkers, my 2 closest friends from college, and my neighbor Teresa, who is 72 and has already brought me banana bread twice since I moved in. 22 people total. More than I'd ever hosted in my life. I spent 2 weekends getting the house ready. I bought a dining table. I put up curtains. I repotted every plant I own and arranged them on the windowsill so the afternoon light would catch them. I borrowed a folding table from Teresa for the food. I made a playlist. I tested the playlist 3 times. The Thursday before the party, I sent a reminder text to my family group chat. My mom replied with a thumbs up emoji. My brother didn't respond at all. I told myself that was fine. Saturday morning, I was up at 6. I showered, I got dressed, I drove to pick up the grocery order. I arranged the cheese boards the way I'd watched 3 YouTube videos to learn. I set out plates and napkins and little cocktail forks. I filled a galvanized tub with ice and canned drinks. I put a small vase of tulips on the entry table by the front door. Yellow. to match the house. By noon, everything was ready. The party was supposed to start at 2. At 1:50, I got a text from my college friend. She was 5 minutes away, parking down the street. At 1:58, my coworker and her husband pulled up. By 2:30, 6 of my friends and coworkers were in my living room, drinks in hand, telling me the house was beautiful. Not one member of my family had arrived. Not one. I checked my phone more times than I want to admit. I kept it face up on the kitchen counter so I'd see it the moment anything came through. I laughed at the right moments in conversation. I refreshed drinks. I passed around the charcuterie board. At 3:15, my mom's name lit up on my screen. I excused myself and stepped onto the porch. "Hey, Mom. Hey, sweetheart." Her voice had a particular quality to it, warm in a way that meant she was about to ask for something. I know that voice the way I know the sound of my own footsteps. "Listen, we're actually over at your brother's place right now." I didn't say anything. "He's having a little gathering. Just some of his music friends, his girlfriend, a few people. You know how he gets when he puts something together. He wanted the family there." "Mom," I said, "I have a party. Right now. At my house. I know. We thought, we thought maybe you could stop by here first, or we could come by your place a little later. Like after things wind down here." I looked through the front window at my friends sitting in my living room. At the food I'd spent $400 in 2 weekends preparing. At the yellow tulips by the door. "When did he plan this?" I asked. A pause, just long enough. "He mentioned it a few weeks ago," she said. "He mentioned it after I sent the invitations." "Honey, I don't think that's Mom. I sent those invitations 6 weeks ago. Physical invitations. 6 weeks ago. Physical invitations. You got one in the mail." Another pause. "Well, he really needed us there," she said, and her tone had shifted now, just slightly, into something that expected me to understand, to accommodate, to be the one who makes it easier for everyone else. I looked at the oak tree in my backyard. There was a robin sitting on the low branch, completely unbothered. "Okay," I said. "I hope you have a good time." I hung up. I went back inside and I stood in my kitchen for a moment by myself. My friend found me there about 30 seconds later. She has a sixth sense for when something's wrong, and she just looked at me and said, quietly, "Your family?" "My family," I confirmed. She handed me a glass of wine and said, "Well, we're here." And that was the right thing to say, actually. The exact right thing. The afternoon moved on. My friends ate all the quiche. Teresa came over at 4 and stayed for 2 hours and told a story about her own first home that had everyone in the room a little teary. My coworker's husband fixed a cabinet hinge that had been loose since I moved in. We ordered pizza at 6 when the charcuterie was gone. It was a good afternoon, actually. It was a real one. At 7:30, I got a notification. My mom had posted on Facebook a photo of my brother in his apartment, holding a glass of something amber, grinning. She'd written, "So proud of this guy. Finally got his own place and we couldn't be happier." I put my phone face down on the counter. I didn't say anything to anyone. I just stood there for a moment, and then I picked up a cocktail napkin and folded it very precisely into quarters, which is what I do when I need something to do with my hands. His own place. His apartment. That he rented. That my parents had co-signed for, and were, I happened to know, helping with rent on. His own place, celebrated publicly by my mother on the same day she didn't come to my housewarming for a home I had saved for 6 years to purchase myself. My friends left around 9. Teresa had gone home earlier. I washed the dishes. I put away the leftovers. I folded the borrowed table back up to return to Teresa. At 9:40, I heard a car in the driveway. I didn't move for a moment. Then I walked to the front door and opened it before anyone could knock. My mom was standing on my porch. She was holding a bottle of wine, and her expression was doing something complicated. Part guilt, part expectation, part something I still don't have a name for. "I wanted to see the house," she said. I looked at her. I looked at the bottle of wine. It was a $15 bottle from the grocery store, and I know that because I recognized the label. "It's almost 10, I said. "I know. I'm sorry we couldn't make it earlier. You know how your brother gets when, Mom." My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Why didn't you come? We were at his. I know where you were. I'm asking why. I invited you 6 weeks ago. I sent you a paper invitation. I texted a reminder. You've known about this party since March. She shifted the wine bottle from one hand to the other. He needed family there. I needed family here. I said it without any particular inflection. I wasn't crying. I wasn't raising my voice. I was just saying a thing that was true. I bought a house, Mom. I saved for 6 years and I bought a house on my own. Without any help, without anyone co-signing anything or covering any month I was short. I did it myself. And you weren't here. She opened her mouth. Don't, I said quietly. Don't say after everything we've done for you. Don't say that. Tell me one thing you've done to support something I was working toward. One specific thing. Not generically, not we raised you, or we paid for part of college. Something you did because you believed in what I was building. The porch was very quiet. A car went by on the street. The motion sensor light on the garage blinked on and then off. You make everything so hard, my mom finally said. And here's the part I want to be very clear about, because it matters. I did not apologize. For the first time in my adult life, standing on the porch of my own home at 9:45 at night, I did not say I was sorry. I think you should go, I said. I hope you had a nice evening with him. She stood there for another few seconds. Then she turned and walked back to the car. I watched her back out of the driveway. I stood on the porch until the taillights disappeared around the corner. The next morning, I found out why my brother had really chosen that day. My coworker texted me. She follows his girlfriend on Instagram, and the girlfriend had posted a reel from the gathering. In the caption, she'd tagged the apartment building and written something about finally making it official. A few comments in, someone asked if they'd bought the place. The girlfriend replied with a laughing emoji and, Lomo, we could never. It's a rental, but we're making it feel like ours. A rental. A rental that my parents had driven 40 minutes to celebrate on the same afternoon they couldn't make it to my housewarming. A rental my mother had called his own place on Facebook with a pride she had never once publicly expressed for anything I had done. I sat with that information for a long time. I made coffee. I sat on my porch in the morning light. The robin was back in the oak tree. Or maybe it was a different robin. I can't actually tell them apart. But I liked thinking it was the same one. I didn't feel angry exactly. I felt something more like clarity. Like a long-running background noise had finally stopped, and the quiet was so complete, I could hear my own thoughts for the first time in years. My dad called that afternoon. He and my mom have always been a unit. I'd never had a conversation with just him that felt truly separate from her. But his voice when I picked up was different. Careful. I should have come, he said. That's what I'm calling to say. I should have been there. I didn't say anything for a moment. I wasn't sure if he meant it or if he was doing damage control on behalf of everyone. I let your mother take the lead on the plans, he said. I've been letting her do that for a long time. That's not an excuse. I'm telling you, so you know I understand what I did. Okay, I said. Can I come see the house? Just me. This week, if you're free. I'll bring lunch. I looked around my living room, at the curtains I'd hung, the plants on the windowsill, the dining table that now had a small scratch from when my coworker's husband bumped it with his chair, and somehow the scratch already felt like part of the house. Wednesday, I said. Noon. Wednesday, noon, I'll be there. He brought sandwiches from a deli I've always liked. He walked through every room slowly, looking at everything, asking real questions. When he got to the backyard and saw the oak tree, he stood under it for a moment and said, This is a good tree. I know it doesn't fix anything. I know one Wednesday doesn't undo the pattern of 31 years. But I wrote it down because it happened and it mattered. And I think it's important to acknowledge when someone shows up, even late, even imperfectly, because the opposite of that is deciding no one ever can. It's been 3 months now. I still haven't spoken to my brother about that day. I don't know if I will. There are conversations I used to feel obligated to have, and I've been slowly, carefully figuring out which ones I actually want to have versus which ones I'm only having because I was trained to smooth things over. My mom and I have spoken twice. Both times were surface level, a birthday, a family obligation. She has not acknowledged what happened. She probably won't. I've stopped expecting her to, and I'm learning that letting go of an expectation is not the same as forgiving or not forgiving. It's just releasing a thing you were carrying that was never going to arrive. Teresa had me over for dinner last week. Her daughter was visiting from Portland, and they'd made this enormous pot of chicken and dumplings, and we sat at her kitchen table for 2.5 hours. Her daughter asked me how I'd ended up in Westerville, and I told her the whole story, not the housewarming, just the saving, the spreadsheet, the 6 years, and she listened like it was genuinely interesting. Like the details mattered. Like I mattered. That's the thing nobody tells you about finally getting what you worked for. It's not the house. Or it's not only the house. It's what happens when the house reveals who was actually rooting for you. I walked home that night in the dark, and I could see my porch light from down the street. I'd left it on, and for a moment it looked exactly like I had imagined it would, back when it was only a color-coded spreadsheet and a date I was watching like a sunset. It looked like mine. It is mine. I've been thinking about cause and effect a lot lately. Not in a cosmic sense, I don't mean fate or anything preordained. I just mean the quiet, accumulating logic of how our choices compound over time. The way a pattern of behavior in one direction will eventually produce a result in that same direction. What you practice, you become. What you repeatedly choose, you eventually are. My mother practiced choosing my brother. Not once, not occasionally, consistently, over decades, in ways both large and small. She practiced minimizing what I built and amplifying what he attempted. And the result of that practice showed up on a Saturday afternoon in April in the clearest possible way. She was 40 minutes across town celebrating a rental apartment while I stood in a home I'd bought with 6 years of my own discipline, waiting. That's not punishment. That's just consequence. The logical endpoint of a long pattern finally becoming visible enough that I couldn't explain it away anymore. And I had spent years explaining it away. That's the part I want to sit with honestly, because I think it matters. I told myself I was patient. I told myself I was the bigger person. I told myself that needing acknowledgement was somehow beneath me, that real strength meant not requiring anyone to show up. I was wrong about all of that. What I was actually doing was protecting myself from a painful conclusion by staying busy with a more comfortable story. The housewarming forced the conclusion. And I think that's what hard moments actually do. Not break you, but clarify you. Strip away the comfortable story and leave you standing in the truth of the situation with nowhere left to hide from it. What I chose to do with that clarity is the part I'm most proud of. I didn't perform anger. I didn't send a group text. I didn't make my mom's absence the headline of my evening. I let my friends fill my living room. I let Teresa tell her story at my table. I let my coworker's husband fix the cabinet hinge. I let the night be what it actually was, genuinely good, with the people who were genuinely there, instead of poisoning it with grief over who wasn't. That took something. Not toughness exactly. More like a decision to be present in the real version of my life instead of the one I kept hoping would eventually materialize. And when my mom showed up at 9:45 with a $15 bottle of wine, I didn't yell. I didn't list every grievance. I asked one honest question, waited, and when her answer confirmed what I already knew, I said what was true without apology. That's the thing about developing actual self-respect over time. Not the performed kind, not the kind you announce on social media. The quiet, internal kind that comes from keeping promises to yourself for 6 years. It changes how you talk. It changes what you're willing to accept. My dad showed up on Wednesday. That matters too. Not because it erases anything, but because growth is real, and it's worth recognizing when it happens, even late. I've decided I'm not interested in a version of my life where no one is allowed to do better. I just require that doing better look like action, not words. The oak tree is still in the backyard. The robin is probably still in it. Or one that looks just like it. My house smells like coffee in the mornings, and whatever I cooked the night before. It is ordinary, and it is mine, and I earned every square foot of it through 6 years of choosing the spreadsheet over the easy path. That, I think, is the whole lesson. Not a dramatic one, just this. The life you want requires you to build it, and the people worth keeping are the ones who show up while you do.